Today, let's have a look at father-son emotional incest. There have been quite a few videos on emotional incest, and basically it's when a parent takes over a child emotionally for their own needs. The focus is not on the best interest of the child, it's about the adult's needs, the parent's needs. Well, most cases of emotional incest involve opposite sex parents. So for example, a mother taking over a son or a father taking over a daughter. But of course, there's also mother-daughter emotional incest. I just did a video on that a few weeks ago. And today I want to talk about father-son relationship in this way. So because emotional incest doesn't involve any sort of physical contact, this is purely the emotional taking over of a child for the father's needs because he's a lost individual on some level. He's either unhappy in his marriage if he does happen to be married, or he's a single father, or he just doesn't like himself very much. So when an adult is lost in this way, they can go get professional help if they want to. A lot choose not to. And rather than deal with all the complicated issues, they just simply take over a child, make them be their companion for their own benefit. Of course, with opposite sex children, we could say the mini husband or mini wife, but we're not really talking about that today because we're talking about father-son. So it's more about the companionship, seeing the world through their son's eyes. So for men in general, the way they're raised typically across most cultures, most societies, they're taught to keep in their feelings more so. Don't share your feelings, just plow your way through it. Well, there are occasions in life where we have to just manage to get through something. But if we're dealing with our family this way, if we're raising a child in this manner, it's going to be harmful to that child. Because rather than share their feelings, talk about them on some level, if they're not doing that, then they're therefore going to be acted out. A father who struggles like this with his own sense of self or in relationships in general is probably dealing with some sort of emotional deprivation, and so therefore is teaching his son that being emotionally deprivated is okay. That's what's being role modeled, emotional deprivation. So the father's thinking they're going to make their son strong through emotional deprivation, not dealing with feelings, talking or sharing about them, but instead acting them out, when in reality, a child needs to learn how to express their feelings. But this all ties into masculinity and being macho, so it can be very confusing for the father as he navigates this. So the son, being emotionally taken over, is not free to just decide for himself, figure out for himself what being a man is all about, figuring out what his masculinity means to him. Because if the dad is making the son his companion, then the son is like, oh, I need to please my dad. I want to grow up and be just like good old dad. Of course, the son would want to role model his primary role model, which in this case is his father, because to be a victim of emotional incest in this way, it means the mother's more removed. She's not involved. That's what emotional incest is all about. Let's say it is a two-parent household. Well, if it's emotional incest, the mother is very emotionally distant, very submissive. She's just letting her husband, the father, do this. She's not stepping in any kind of equal way, so the father's taking over the way he wants to take over. Well, if it's a somewhat healthy taking over, then that's not too bad. But if it's an unhealthy taking over, which it usually is, then that brings up a lot of red flags here. For example, because he has a bad relationship with the wife, he's role modeling to the son that you don't really have to communicate in a marriage. You don't really have to treat them like they're equals or peers. Perhaps that's the message coming across. We don't have to check with mom about this. Come on, let's just go do our own thing. Well, the son will love that, hanging out with dad, but the message he's learning here is that we don't have to be considerate to women. In this case, then the son doesn't have to be considerate to girls in his 5th grade class, for example. So if the son's not getting any healthy role modeling, then the son is going to feel inferior because in essence, that's what he's learning. So ironically, when a father tries to take over the son in this way, really steer the course the whole time, not have much, if any, influence from the mother, then the father may think he's doing a good job of turning this son into a man, be a strong man, but in reality, he could be emasculating that son. So we can be emasculated from mothers, we can be emasculated from fathers. And the emasculation ties into the notion that the son is being swept away under the umbrella of all this fatherly power. I have to do what daddy wants. I have to please daddy. Daddy wants me to do this, so of course I'll do it. I want to be just like daddy. And so in doing that and being raised that way, the child's not growing a good sense of self. It's simply about pleasing another male, his father. And I better take after dad and go into the career dad wants me to have. or play the sports dad wants me to play, all the while pushing down his own sense of self and what he's all about and his needs, his wants, his desires, etc. When you think about it, it's a lack of unconditional love, right? The love from the Father to the Son is based on certain conditions. Do this, follow me, take up my likes, my dislikes, do what I suggest. That's a very conditional love, because the Son realizes that if I don't, if I go my own way, if I forge my own path in life, then I may be emotionally abandoned by my own Father. He may want nothing to do with me. He may just ignore me. Well, Son doesn't want to go through that. So most of the time they're going to capitulate. They're going to give in. So while the Father is seeking out companionship through his Son, it's creating all sorts of blurred boundaries in this Son's life, in his mind, and in reality. There are a lot of blurred boundaries here. A parent's role is to step back and assist, help when needed, guide, mentor. It's not about going in there and just taking over a child in this way, emotionally smothering them. So now with just a few of the things I've mentioned, the Son has a reduced sense of power, right? He's also learning that women are basically unimportant, right? I have to put on, I have to perform in order to gain acceptance from my Father. And of course, he's being emasculated because there's no real strong sense of self. Therefore, masculinity, which is really what masculinity is all about. Masculinity is much more about in the mind, how one feels about themselves, a sense of power, than it has to do much with exterior. We often think of the exterior, meaning the big muscle dudes driving the pickup trucks, playing a lot of sports, and those things are all okay, except for the fact that they don't incorporate sometimes the emotional part of this, meaning we're all just simply human beings and we all have tons of feelings, whether you're male or female. That's just simply the reality of things. That's part of our DNA. To try to avoid that or minimize that or ignore that is not going to help sons grow up. And there's many more examples, but lastly, I'll just say the Father could be jealous of his Son as well. He's living vicariously through the Son. The Son is much more popular than I was. The Son has way more friends than I used to when I was in high school. And so now we can have the yin and the yang of jealousy going on, all of it hidden, by the way, because the Father's not going to bring this up. But he can certainly act it out if he wants to, and can show it in very passive-aggressive ways. And that may lead to the Father pushing the Son in a certain direction in terms of a career path, for example. Do what I couldn't do. The Son not even knowing what to make of all this. What does this even mean? What do you want me to do and why? Now, the Son may not voice this at all, but just simply give in and do what Dad wants. And Dad is choosing something for the Son that he himself wants, something he couldn't achieve, something he's always wanted to do that he's placing on the Son now. He's projecting it, but maybe the Son doesn't want that at all. So it's important to be able to have conversations with the Son about this. But if it's just all dumped on a child, the child more than likely is going to give in order to keep peace in the home, to continue being loved. You don't want to be abandoned. So there's many levels to this issue. It's very complicated on some level because we have strong degrees of male toxicity that could come in terms of ideas of what it means to be masculine. And then if the Father's not secure with his own masculinity, he may be projecting that onto the child in different ways and not allowing the child to explore himself and grow up in a healthier way where the Son is able to stand on his own 2 feet symbolically and therefore not be emasculated because he's finding his own self in his own way, in his own authentic way, not just to please a parent. So, a lot going on here. Please leave me some comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about this topic. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.